or should I say welcome back. This is the Grand Teton Music Festival's Backstage Pass, your once a month invitation to gather everyone who loves and supports this festival, reconnecting our musicians, our friends, our supporters, and welcoming anyone who's drawn to be part of our GTMF community. We're in season 2, this is episode 2, and we're creating this platform in alliance with GTMF's new On Location series, which features our musicians performing in their home cities each month. My name is Eva Capoletti Chow. I'm a violinist, and I've been coming out to the Tetons for almost 20 years.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see all of you. My name is Jerry Ho. I'm the Associate Conductor for the Grand Teton Music Festival, and I've been at the festival for about 4 years. And it's a pleasure to be back here for season 2. And of course, none of this would be possible without the technical and production guidance of Mike Richards. Please say hi, Mike.
Thanks, Jerry. It's good to be back. Good to see all of the people in the chat and the audience. So, yeah, let's do it.
Thanks, Mike. So Eva, it's been about a month since we last chatted in November, and that time we talked a little bit about what you have been doing since we had finished season 1, and we were talking about certification as a life coach and such, but we didn't get a chance to talk about what you were doing musically. And I know that in the summer, as a freelance violinist, a lot of work was missing, but you're performing again now. And I know that somewhat, okay. And I know that you, a couple of things were exciting. You had a CD release recently with a chamber group, as well as you and Phil, your other half, have been doing a lot of concerts as a duo, a violin viola duo. So would you want to tell us a bit more about what you've been up to?
Thank you. So yeah, I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling, especially as a freelancer, that even what we're able to do, which I'm grateful for, doesn't feel much like a normal season. But that said, I think a lot of people are putting out the recorded material right now because that is something that can happen. And so one of the cool things, and I just happen to have it here because I thought you might ask, is this CD. And it's the music of Bernard Herrmann, and he's famous for the music of Psycho. Mm-hmm. And in one of the ensembles that we play with, it's called Post-Classical Ensemble. We did a concert of Bernard Herrmann, and they liked it so much that we were asked to play one of his clarinet quintets, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's called Souvenir de Voyage. Am I saying that right, Jerry? Say it with
Sounds so right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a really beautiful work. So we did it a couple of times at the National, well, we did it at, where did we play it? At the National Cathedral, we played it. And then we also made a recording of it. And so that's nice to have that come out. Feels a little bit like I'm a violinist still. And then, yeah, just little things. We actually, with the same group, just got to play at the Spanish Embassy for doing Catalan music, actually, for the holidays on a live stream to a bunch of Spaniards in the United States. So that was kind of exciting and interesting and masked and strange, and yeah, that whole recording and it being live thing is so strange. And that actually is what I wanted to post back to you, which is here you are and you're working in your orchestras, but it's all recorded as well. And it has a certain amount of tension in it because it's not just a live performance where you can kind of let it go at the end because everything is recorded. So how has that been for you, both as a conductor and also, and just how you're watching what's happening in your orchestras?
As you said, it is stressful since everything is being recorded and broadcast, and so sort of out there. Something about recording and musicians, it certainly amps up the nerves for quite a bit. And here in Atlanta, it's the holiday season now, but we started recording our holiday concerts back at the last week of October. And so it was like we had, Christmas tree was out, a large wreath was out, and candles, and we were recording all this holiday music for broadcast later this month, in the next week, I guess. But it's been very much a process that a lot of musicians are sort of facing right now, since we can't have live audiences and we are being filmed and recorded, and sort of we've talked a little bit about the effects it has on musicians, just sort of um, our industry of our need for perfection, and having a recording that really intensifies that even more. And without the audience, I remember our first concert here in Atlanta, and it was we had Gil Shaham as the soloist playing the Beethoven violin concerto, and it was our first time through to record a concert, and there was no one in the audience, but everybody was dressed in their tails and gowns as the sort of opening night concert. And the way we are doing it here in Atlanta is that we are able to play through a movement of a piece, and then we can do some rehearsals and play through the movement again, and that's it. And
Right.
there's not really any sort of patch sessions or anything. And we were talking, and Gil was made this point that it's like the worst of both worlds. There's no audience with which to play for, and then so it's not really a concert feeling, but then it's also not really like a recording session because you can't go back and make any edits or patches. So it's really
You're
intensifies.
Yeah, you're trying to make it perfect, perfect, perfect. That kind of playing.
Yeah, so it is a interesting situation, and it's thank goodness we have some hope right now with the vaccine coming out that we can sort of go back to live performance, and that's something to
Look
be
forward.
grateful for. Yeah, be grateful for, and but it's also the idea of recording concerts. At least it's I do know that a lot of the audience they do enjoy seeing the concerts. They online seeing the local orchestra, seeing the musicians that they're so used to seeing in person. And just like we had the music from the mountains for GTMF, where so many of our wonderful supporters were able to see the musicians, it really gave them some hope for next year when we have our 60th anniversary.
Yeah.
And so right now with this On Location series, that's the best we can do, but it's certainly not ideal, and it sort of hammers home the idea that music is to be consumed live as much as we possibly can.
It's like a perfect segue to bring in our guests, because I would love to know what their experience was of doing this recording.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have from Chicago, where our most recent GTMF On Location concert was. We have with us today, we have Gail Williams and we have Michael Mulcahy. And we have joining us, hi Mick, hi Gail, how are you doing? Great to see you.
Nice.
Thanks for being here.
Everyone.
Is that your Christmas tree behind you, Gail?
Yes, it is.
Look at that.
Beautiful. Before we go on, we also wanted to say it's a special day today because we wanted to wish Gail a happy birthday. And so if everybody in the audience,
I know,
happy birthday, Gail.
I just like almost want us to try to sing, but it'll be such cacophony. But you're getting a happy birthday in the chat from Josh Phillips saying, "Happy birthday, Professor Williams." Thank
I've
you.
already had my granddaughters sing me happy birthday, so that was very special.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wonderful. As two veteran performers, what it was like for the two of you to play for GTMF On Location for the filming, and sort of how you feel about what our current state is for music.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It was a mixture of joy and relief to actually be in the same room as other musicians, dear friends and longtime colleagues, and to make music live just added that extra element, that extra pulse to the experience that you have all been describing as very challenging when we're in the remote environment, when we're pre-recording stuff, or where we have no physical contact with our audience. So as soon as we gathered, all five of us, was just such a heartwarming reunion. And it was just great to have live sound around us, especially such great sounds. and it underlines what this means to us and what this must mean for those who come to our concerts. And of course, we try to, we do our very best as musicians to project emotionally what we're saying in every environment. But for sure, when human beings are around you, you feel buoyed and supported and even inspired sometimes. And sometimes even more courageous when people are around us. And so being a musician is not just being a star. It has a lot more to do with being a human being and therefore being a good collaborator and a good team player. And to be back with these dear friends and colleagues really underlined that team spirit.
I can only say I absolutely agree with everything Mick said. It was the only thing I remember. Maestro Elder said one time when we were in Jackson doing a concert, and he said to me, "I don't get it. I've never seen an orchestra hug each other so much." And you couldn't hug your colleagues. It was tough. You know, you kind of don't even want to do that. It's like, okay, just sit down and let's play. And that was enough of a heartwarming experience just to see music with the four of them. It was something you really miss. You really, really miss it. And you miss hearing other people play and your students play. And so it's a time that we have to remember that we are going to get through this and we're going to really enjoy when we all get back together again and get to perform again and play all this great music, you know.
Absolutely. Had the two of you done any other performances leading up to this concert? No.
Not for people.
Not for people, yeah.
No, a couple of times outdoors in the summer. Sadly, sadly a funeral, happily a wedding, and a July the 4th concert on the lawn of one of my neighbors and colleagues. We had about 25, 30 people spaced out along a street and played for an hour as a virtual band July the 4th concert. And I also did a low brass thing that included Jared Roden, one of our bass trombone players at the Tetons. And we had a low brass presentation, chamber music presentation for a nun who was celebrating her 95th birthday.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was back in May, and we were in a huge cathedral, and there were, you know, mostly retired nuns, not all of them in their 90s, but maybe several of them, and it was a beautiful thing to make music live, and especially on such a special occasion. But once again, underlines how long it's been since we went into this crevasse.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, besides being performers, the both of you are renowned teachers teaching at Northwestern. And how's it affected, teaching is such a big part of your lives. And how's it affected both your teaching and, of course, the care that you have for your students? How's it affected their lives? Gail, you were talking about, right now you're listening to pre-screening.
Well, in the spring, we had no choice but to teach remotely. And that was very challenging. It took quite a while to make that adaptation, and we had to change the whole way we interact with the student, not just the fact that we weren't in the same room, but doing live transmission over the internet is a very shaky proposition. You can't rely on the basic transmission of it, but even more significantly, you don't always get an accurate representation of what you would experience in the room. So we had to change we had to change the way we delivered lessons. And in my case, we changed to the students preparing all pre-recorded material for the lesson before we got together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a protocol about the observation, and to make it a little bit more active, we introduced the requirement that they so we have a system of reporting every lesson in the trombone studio. They actually write a written report of every lesson. So we started doing that evaluation pre their meeting with me. So they'd record their material, then they'd do a self-written evaluation, which I would get to read before I saw them. And before I read their evaluation, I'd make my evaluation. And then we would get together, and that pushed the whole process a lot further along, so that when we finally got together in real time, if not in the real space, we had a much higher starting point than just trying to juggle something live over the internet.
Fortunately, did not jump on Mick's bandwagon in doing that, and I wish I had, because it's sometimes you're in the middle of a lesson and it would totally freeze, so you jump over to FaceTime, and then you jump back over to Zoom. So it was very disruptive, and to keep the thoughts, I took copious notes, and sometimes in our horn classes we would have pre-recorded solos. That certainly helped. But this fall, we were able to see, they first said 4, and then they said 6 live lessons in a large space. So I saw most of everybody that came back. I had some people, the freshmen were not allowed to come, that's 6 of them, and then some grad students didn't come back. But the rest of the people, a senior and a grad student, also didn't come. So I had 14 out of the about 22 or 24 students. And we then had live lessons in a large rehearsal space or one of the halls, or something like that. And the upside of that is they never get to play a lesson in a big large space unless it's their dress rehearsal. So I kept saying, take advantage of this. This is your time to have a lesson in a large space. I did not play for any of them. I thought that was just one more layer that I didn't need to go into. So I sat in the back of the hall with a mask on, and they performed, and I think that helped, because they were able to realize what they have to do musically and articulation-wise to project their sound. And then a few cases, I got to do a brass ensemble concert, spaced out. We'd rehearse in the hall, and then we go rehearse in the lobby, and then we go back around the building and rehearse in the hall, and rehearse in the lobby and go back around. So just to clean out the air that time. And that was pretty special. Then a few cases started popping up.
Wow.
And so that's when because my husband had some health problems, that's when the home nurse said, no, you can't go back in. Yeah. So that's when I had to just do online lessons. But we got about 6, 7 weeks, in live lessons. My other colleague, John Bowen, in the horn studio, taught in the parking garage because we had a nice fall weather. So they were outside. So unfortunately, that's not going to happen in January. We will have students coming back, and we hope to do similar in the winter and spring quarters. Maybe more, because if we can. I never had to give a lesson at night, and I'm very willing to go do it.
Right.
The students were so emotional when they came back in the fall. As Gail said, the freshmen were not permitted on campus, and I had 2 grads who chose to defer, and so we had 21 people on campus taking live lessons, and it was a real lifeline for them, but it was also a lifeline for me, because I finally felt like I was doing something productive, and that what I was doing actually made any kind of difference. which is very hard to, it's hard to feel that in the remote situation. So to see them interacting with each other, even in normal times, they tend to be a very tight bunch. It's a real club that they identify with. But then they were just so joyful to be with one another, and I think there were 6 trombone ensembles within the studio. I think there were 5 quartets and 1 trio, and they were all going in competitions and things. So they were very active doing that. And for the first time, I actually had time to do chamber music coaching, which I normally don't have time to do. So that was even more contact. The other catch in the trombone studio is that all of my colleagues who helped me teach all these wonderful kids, they all live in other cities like Minneapolis and San Francisco and Cleveland and so on. So it was only me that was able to deliver live lessons. All their other lessons with the other faculty were remote. So the more time I could win with them, the better. And so it made my fall much, much more bearable. And I'm hoping that despite the fact that the country has gone the wrong way in the virus, that Northwestern continues to do a good job. They've done a good job organizing protocols that allow us to teach, as Gail described, and the protocols worked very well. And when there've been any problems, the support staff have been just terrific. We've got a really great support team there now who help us do all this stuff. I'm just hoping that we get to go back in the winter. We're planning for it. They're making a lot of plans to make it happen. It may be a higher power that would prevent it because obviously the numbers are tragically unnecessarily high.
Yeah. So there's probably no orchestras or wind ensemble or anything going on at Northwestern, right?
There was.
There was, okay.
Not doing any winds in the orchestra. They had string orchestra.
I see.
And they did have wind ensemble. They were separate times, like winds started like the 5th week of the quarter. And that was going on. And she was, Dr. Thompson was doing the same idea of doing something on stage with this, not more than 14 or 15 people, like Dvorak Serenade or something like that. And then a piece out in the lobby, because that's a very big lobby out in Pickstager. And then they would go walk around the building and come back in and do something else, but they were rotating. Right. And so they were doing that. They didn't use bell covers. They didn't use masks. I know a lot of people are doing that. There's so much information that we don't know what works yet. The students have to get tested every week, and the faculty, well, we were sort of like on we would get an email once in a while. You can come in, or you could choose to go in. So I chose to go in more often than probably I would necessarily need to, but if I could, why not?
Yeah.
So it's just nice to know when you have the test.
Yeah.
This feels like a good time to bring in, I know that you've sent some links of your students playing, and this seems like a really good time to bring that in because the conversation's hard. It's so, like, the personal experience of it is I'm listening to you, I'm feeling inside me, it's like, oh, it's so kind of disappointing, but you're trying, and so it's also heartening, and then at the same time, it's not the same thing as live and natural and all of that. And yet, I know I saw Gail's, and as I'm saying this, Mike, if you would be willing to get Gail's link ready, and she sent it to me, and it's so heartening that, even through what feels like not the most perfect circumstances and not the way you'd want it to happen, it still has power. And that's what I'd love to bring forth in this conversation right now, because
well, what was so important for me was this was a project they did totally on their own. I did not hear it until the end product. And they have so many special talents, when it comes to these computer things. is not in my repertoire, you know. And one student really just grabbed the whole recording project, and he was so excited. And you know, this is the time that you then go develop another aspect of your education, and you go into technology. I think this is going to be a time where other people start learning many more facets of what they're going to do in the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a direction that orchestras have known they've needed to go, and now it's just that your generation, these students are, because they're much more fluent in that language than the generation that maybe got it when we were already adults. They will be bringing orchestras into the 21st century in terms of technology. Yeah, so Mike is showing me that he's got the Ave Maria ready.
That was beautiful. I still remember when the first videos like that came out, and just seeing how much quality and it's not easy putting those things together. So bravo to your students.
Beautiful arrangement. I never had heard it, so it was all new to me.
They found it. They did.
Yeah.
And Gail, are you willing to say who Nancy Hinners is?
She was a wonderful lady that actually one of the students studied with her in high school. But this person she went to Northwestern. She was a voice major and a horn major, studied with Phil Farkas. And she played in the North Shore Concert Band, I think, like 44 years. And she taught in the area for many, many years. And if anybody attended more recitals than she and her daughter, I don't know who it would be. Wow. They were at every single recital. So, and they were not only for horn and trombone, it was cello and voice and violin, and they went to everybody's recital. It was wonderful. And she, I think, had a stroke.
Oh,
And so she was, boom, she was gone. She was all ready to go to all these recitals, and then the pandemic hit, and then we didn't get to say goodbye.
yeah.
So,
Well, and
I
so
know the trombone students also did a tribute to her too.
so beautiful that we have this way to say goodbye through
Yes.
the language.
Yes.
And Mick, your students also had something else, had a video as well, right?
Yeah, the video I have is rather modest in length. I know that some of the performances at trombone class were recorded, and so I got this morning some movements from a work by Timothy Higgins, who has played at the Teton Festival. He's principal trombone in the San Francisco Symphony, former student of mine at Northwestern. So he's got a kind of a dual career as a composer as well as a performer. And my students, some of them are playing some of his music, and the piece today is 6 Bagatelles by Timothy Higgins, and they've sent me the first movement of that. It's just a fanfare, just a very quick fanfare, and it's a workshop performance. They're being coached on this at trombone class, so it's a work in progress, but it's at the gritty end of music preparation and concert practice.
Great. Mike, do you have that?
Yeah.
Could you pull that up for us, please?
Bravo.
There's so much humor in that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fun.
What a fun piece. What a fun piece.
Did they enjoy
Yeah.
it? Yeah, what was your experience as you were working on this? Were you working on this with them? This was something you were helping coach?
Yes. Yep. I think that one of the steepest learning curves for young musicians is how to make music with other people, how to react and how to respond. And so a lot of the coaching has to do with awareness and the amount of their consciousness that has to be devoted to their radar, taking in information and adjusting, as well as the depth of their knowledge of the piece that they're playing. And I'm always telling my students, if you're counting numbers, you don't know the music. And it's all very well to keep track of your beats and your bars rest, but you have to know it so well that it's already part of you, and it's that part of your consciousness is not being wasted on just orientation. And I have found too that many of my better students have had work opportunities with me for the Teton Festival. It's after they've been established in the profession, but in the Chicago Symphony, there are from time to time opportunities for young players to play with us. And in almost every case, after their first hour or so, I have to give them a little pep talk and say, this is not the time to be thinking about what I'm thinking, or I'm not there as your teacher. You are there as a professional, and you have to just lift your game and concentrate on the job at hand. Forget judgment, forget who you are, forget who I am, and really come alive and start reacting.
Yeah.
They're kind of in shock. If you're playing in a professional orchestra like ours for the first time, for anyone, it's a shock. But for a pretty young student, we've had some very young people come in, and it's like a little bit deer in the headlights. And the incredible thing is that invariably, once they find their feet, which happens fairly quickly, people notice how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I will get a lot of feedback from other colleagues, unsolicited feedback about what they think about what various people are doing. So the coaching aspect, it's as much practical as it is artistic. I have a pet peeve in professional life that musicians should take composers' intentions much more seriously than they do. And my philosophy is that the musician is really the vehicle for the composer, not a vehicle for themselves. And so there's a lot of impressive performance that is based more on instrumentalism than it is in the representation of great art. And so I think musicians are great, but I think great composers are like mountains. So, you know, we yearning for these mountains. I think of musicians as being the very passionate hikers and backpackers, but the composers of the mountains that we explore. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, that's a terrific way to look at that. And that also helps you were saying about your students that, don't think about who I am or what I'm thinking of you or whatever, and a way to do that is to recognize that you are the climber of the mountain. Like it's not about me, it's not about you. It's like go into the most
Absolutely
present place to come from, so then that's where the nerves go away anyway, the whole abilities
Yep.
to be outside yourself.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of some words that I heard from you that have stuck with me from my former life as a trombonist. And it was, I was asking you about music, and you were saying that you're not a trombonist who happens to be a musician, but you're a musician who happens to be a trombonist. And you're talking about instrumentalism and just the focus on just being a great musician and serving the composer. And so those words have lived with me for a very long time. So I thank you for that, Mick.
good to hear, Jerry. Thank you.
No idea you were a trombonist.
I hide it well, don't I?
I need to hike with you more often. I'll hear more stories,
Oh, sure.
By the way, I got a message from Jared Roden, our bass trombone player in the Tetons, and he reminded me that Sister Ana Clara was not 95; she was 105.
Oh my God.
So I seem to be aging quicker than her. I got her age wrong in my memory, and bizarrely, all the chamber ensembles at school try to come up with crazy names for their groups. Some of them have to be corrected because they're not even mentionable in public. But this particular quartet was Leslie's Ladders, and they explained it to me, and I never understood why it was. But I do want to mention their names: Daniel Nakazano, Liam Glendenning, Felix Regaldo, and Patrick Di Somma. And those were the boys who got a run today. But as I say, one of several groups. Also associating with students keeps things very real, because there are always amazing things that they can do, sometimes staggering things, but there are also things that they can't quite seem to grasp. And as a teacher, as a mentor, it takes a lot of insight and a lot of imagination to try to understand exactly what the student perceives and exactly what they feel. And just seeing it through my eyes and through my experience doesn't necessarily help. And once again, I have another analogy that I hadn't thought of before, but I remember the first time I went skiing in this country, and I hadn't skied anywhere before we moved to the United States. And so we were in a group ski lesson, and the instructor was really great. And he explained the most simple things that you would teach a 3 or 4 year old kid to us group of predominantly adults. And at that time that he said, so we're just going to slide down this little hill here. About 20 people just slid down the hill and I just fell right over. And then he came back and then he taught me how I could stand up. And so that was my first lesson. Okay, you fall down, now stand up. And so that's on my mind, in the deep recesses of my mind, when I say something that's as plain as day to me, and my student looks like he's just heard Greek. And so to try to have that insight is very important. And many years later, also a Teton connection, when I came out, and Gail was part of this, we came out for a winter chamber music project. And while I was there, every day I took a private ski lesson. And it was such a great experience because my teacher was really good. In fact, he was so good, I let him know that he could, in all good ethics, give trombone lessons, because he could teach that well that he could teach someone to play the trombone.
It is a fine art, teaching. And these times right now really have to make you rethink how to teach. And it seems like all of both students for both of you are really reaping the benefits of that and your devotion.
I sort of laugh when people say, well, have you worked on your syllabus yet? And I said, I have 24 of them. Every student is a different one. They're all different. They learn differently. And the job for us is to figure out how each student learns so you can help them figure it out. And that's why you continue teaching. That's what's the important part.
And now what I'm hearing from both of you, and especially even the conversation before we started recording was, and now virtually as well. So like there's a whole new set of skills that we need to see what's working for them, what's not. If they're pre-recording it, for example, and giving it to me, are they getting the same information that they would if it were live, and having to make those decisions? It means it's a good thing musicians are used to being flexible and still engaging.
It's going to be interesting 10 years down the road what this virus has done to everybody.
It'll be interesting to see.
Student-wise.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
That music will survive and students will be there, and we have a beautiful art form to share with people. So that's the main thing. We have to continue.
I want to bring us to our next segment, and the word tricky just got said, and that made me think of what we're offering you for this next segment, which is our sort of game segment to take us into a lighter space for a little while. And I think Jerry's going to run it, and we were trying to figure out what to do with you both. And I had seen on Jerry's Facebook that he was on Jeopardy as a contestant. And maybe, Jerry, you should give us more of that information, but that was kind of amazing to find out.
Well, this sort of came when Alex Trebek passed away about a month ago.
So you posted your picture, I think.
So I posted my picture, and Mike, Mike says picture. Sure, you want to show the picture, Mike? And,
all right.
So we thought we would play. I ended up in second place for this, and I faced one of the really good champions. And so, but in my game, the very first category was French composers. So we thought it would be fun. Someone thought it was really fun for us to go down the questions that I had and see how the two of you would fare in this. And of course, everyone in the audience, please play along, and Mike will monitor everything. So
if my students are watching, Jerry, I know they're rooting against me.
here we go. So French composers for 200. This composer died on June 3rd, 1875, exactly 3 months after his Carmen premiered.
Bizet.
All right. So Mick has 200.
Sing me.
Yeah, we need some buzzers.
Or something.
You got to raise your hand or something. That was the hardest part of it, was actually the buzzer. Okay.
Getting to the buzzer fast enough.
Yeah, or timing it. So for 400, many of Francois Couperin's works were written for this old keyboard instrument, including 27 suites.
Harpsichord.
That's right. So 400 for Gail. For 600, although his Clair de Lune is often performed as a separate piece, it's actually the third movement of his Suite Bergamasque.
I'm going to say
Well,
Ravel, probably not.
Well, Debussy, you said Clair de Lune, didn't you?
Yes, that's right.
Sweet.
Debussy, yeah.
For 800, Maurice Ravel's 4 of these included Daphnis and Chloe, written for Diaghilev, and the original version of Bolero.
Ballets.
That's right. Sorry, it needs to be in the form of a question. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Mick.
What is ballet? And by the way, what is ballet?
What is ballet? That's right. And the $1,000 question. For brass players, this should be easy. This Symphony Fantastique composer was given 20,000 francs by Paganini, who declared him a musical genius. That's right. Berlioz.
Did you say it,
It
Gail?
was Hector Berlioz.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who got that one? Was that Gail?
Gail got that.
I'm counting the numbers over here, so I don't know what it is you're going to win, but
And so we have 2 final Jeopardy questions. I didn't know if you wanted a musical one or a non-musical one. They're a real one. Do you have a choice?
I think the host should choose.
What do you think, Gail?
Oh, I think we ought to do a non-musical one because Mick will get it for sure.
All right, here's the non-musical one. This was the one I ended up with for Final Jeopardy. The topic is world geography. Of the 4 largest Asian countries in area, it's the only one that borders the other 3.
did you already guess this one, Gail? I know you've got the.
China?
I can't say, my dogs are talking too loud.
What is China?
Is that it? Derry?
Yep, that's right. What is China? That's correct, Mick.
Dun, 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 dun.
Good job.
What do we get for Final Jeopardy numbers? Like, how do we make? Did they double whatever they got? Is that what that? I can't remember.
No, you have to wager something. So, but anyway.
Hey, get down.
Uh-oh. Well, thank you for playing, you two. We'll call it a tie, and we'll have the tiebreaker next summer on a hike.
I was hoping you were going to ask us questions about what hike has blah, 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 blah on it.
No.
That's the next edition
What's
of...
the best route to get up to Disappointment Peak, Jerry?
You would hear crickets on that one. Disappointment. Actually, that was the one I had altitude sickness on. I eventually made it up there, but I did get...
I'm looking at some of the chat and wanting to bring that forward before we close out today's program. So Dan Risner said, Kim and I thoroughly enjoyed your performance. Thanks so much for your beautifully performed program. I wanted to ask too, there's, what was the church? The stained glass was absolutely beautiful.
That's the chapel on the campus of Northwestern. It's Alice Millar Chapel.
Wow.
And I believe, I don't have the date of when it was built, but I think Charlie Garr said he remembered it being built when he was a student. So it's fairly contemporary. Yeah. Yeah. But it's really quite beautiful.
Nice. Yep, just hellos. There's a question. Which one of those, Jerry, did you answer correctly? There was one for Jerry in here.
Which one did I answer correctly? I think I got the one on Bizet. What else was there? I got the ballet. What is ballet? And I think I also got Berlioz. So I got 3 of the 5.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway.
Who's this? Who should we say hello to before we?
That's one of my granddaughters. It's here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank the 2 of you so much for joining us and being part of Backstage Pass. Also, to make everyone aware of our next GTMF On Location performance. It'll be coming to you from Houston, and it'll be on the 14th of January. And we have a bunch of wonderful chamber music, both with winds and strings. And of course, we're grateful for all of your continued support of the Grand Teton Music Festival. So please like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more performances of the wonderful musicians from the festival.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Mick. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here.